My name is Sammy, and I'm the founder of Formers Anonymous. I'm also a former. I'm going to talk a little bit about why we use the term formers, what we mean by that, why we do that. I'm going to talk a little about who we are, what our purpose is, and talk a little bit about, in that process, highlighting what's different about who we are. What we've learned about ourselves is that we're dynamic. We're not static beings. No one stays the same. Either process of trying to stay the same or trying to change is a choice. What we also have learned is that shame and guilt is quite often believed to be behind the driving forces that bind us to insanity and addiction. And we've learned that it's not wise to associate shame and guilt with the foundation of our change and recovery. Neither is fear a significant motivator. We know this today. In establishing long-term change. We also decided to leave behind the self-proclaimed and institutional labels such as criminal, addicts. In exchange, we've embraced the title of former. We moved from the static position of living with a problem that was and could often be in the past to the dynamic state of asset building through change and recovery as an ongoing process. Once we embrace change and recovery, we can no longer say that we are what we used to be. There was a preceding earlier time in our former lives where we lived as criminals and other things. The title formers relates to a lifestyle taking place in the past, be it 5 seconds ago or decades ago. Criminality being the first of the two mentioned dynamics, past and present. Criminality versus change, addiction versus recovery. Our past is static and cannot be changed, while as a human being, I'm dynamic and I'm always in the process of change, be it for the better or for worse. The title former also implies someone who formed something, a creator, a founder. We believe that we're constantly creating ourselves and our reality. And as a former, we no longer practice insanity as a lifestyle, although the potential to engage in the world in that manner is always close. And we know that we're just one decision away, or one neglected issue or moment away from returning to active addiction and insanity. We've also recognized that a part of our change means that we may have to change the people, places, and things, sometimes permanently, to secure our change and recovery in a manner that it deserves and requires to ensure that our ultimate goals of living on a higher path are achieved. We've traded our past for a future, our weaknesses for strengths, our fear for courage, despair for hope, and honestly, disconnectedness for spirituality. We're quite aware that we're committed to a process of trying to reconnect to the world around us in a meaningful way. One of the other critical changes and differences about Formers Anonymous is how we approach spirituality. We learned through many interviews over many years with hundreds, if not thousands of others, that there are perceived shortcomings with the pre-existing 12-step models around the topic of religion and whether these groups are religious or not, and all the banter back and forth on how, although they use concepts like God and higher power, that they're not. But semantics matter, especially for someone in the beginning of change, someone who's in the process of trying to understand what change looks like. So we're going to meet them where they're at. And so here's what we have to say about spirituality. Many formers, whether it's because of criminal lifestyles, tactics, or pure ideological differences, have rejected any form or effort having to do with religion, God, or higher power of any religious sort. And we sometimes have used it as a basis or an excuse for some not to participate in traditional self-help groups. FA wants to remove those barriers for as many formers as possible. If the language is the barrier, then we need to adapt the language. We do not seek to be exclusive, to marginalize, discriminate, or reject anyone on any basis of an extenuating circumstance. This program is not religious-based program, nor is the word spirituality a code word for Christianity or any other form of religion. When we value having an open mind, the idea of maintaining a process or a journey of self-discovery becomes appealing. It may awaken in us a sense of urgency to embrace the challenges of reaching beyond our current limits. Spirituality then means to us feeling connected to people, places, and things that are most important and most meaningful to us. For this group, spirituality is a way of life, and it's not reliant upon or restricted to being religious, but honors the value of humanity in all people through the practice of carefully, thoughtfully selected spiritual principles. Ultimately, it embraces the belief that there is so much more to life when we connect to these meaningful relationships in an intimate way. Above all else, to each their own. Now I'm going to talk a little about who we are. We're a fellowship of men and women who share our experience, strengths, and hope with each other so that we may arrest compulsive, criminal, addictive behaviors and lifestyles and help others change and recover from addictive behaviors and lifestyles. We don't address offending as a moral issue. Our primary purpose is to identify the addiction we struggle with, and with the help of the 12 steps, restore choice and freedom to our lives. We're self-sustaining. Part of our practice is to try to listen to others respectfully, but we don't give advice or try not to interrupt. We strive towards change and recovery, and we're also trying to recover from addictive behaviors and lifestyles that can include drugs and alcohol. It doesn't have to at all. Oftentimes we're addressing issues of violence, crime, sex, money, shopping, hatred, racism, long-term incarceration and segregation, what have you. Above all else, to each their own. We are currently compiling the literature. I am writing all the literature that we have to date. We were founded in August of 2012. And it started off with me and another person named Chris. And since then, our group has seen hundreds of members coming through. And we know one day we'll be into the thousands and tens of thousands of membership, hopefully before the end of my days. Some things to clarify about how we practice. We don't communicate with outside sources such as police, probation services, prisons, courts, social workers, or any other outside agency about our members. If people who are professionals attend our meetings, they should be able to put aside who they are to come to these meetings, but if they can't, then they probably shouldn't attend FA meetings. We don't write reports or appear in court for any members. Members' names are strictly confidential, regardless of a person's role outside of the meeting. We try to listen respectfully and share our own experience. Another unique aspect of us is that all of our meetings are open. We believe that because we're addressing criminality, that our process should be 100% transparent. And the only thing we ask is that if you attend and you're not a former, that you respect the group's anonymity. We are a group of men and women who have identified a shared problem of attachment and addiction to a grossly irresponsible lifestyle. And all its people, places, and things, including the addictive pull of related thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and ideas, often referred to by many, but not all, as street life. We recognize the existence of an addiction to street life as a primary addiction, similar to other behavioral addictions such as gambling. A person can be compulsively drawn to criminal behaviors in the same way an addict to drugs or alcohol, or a gambler to gambling. And that's why we're coming together to help address those issues. The pillars of FA are forgiveness, reconciliation, and redemption. It is through forgiving others for wrongs that we've suffered. It is through reconciling the wrongs and harm that we have committed and caused onto others. That is a primary responsibility for the changing former. And ultimately, if you live through at least these two spiritual principles, you may indeed find yourself gifted and the recipient of redemption. More is written about these three concepts in our literature. One final thing that I'll say before I wrap this up is that we've also made significant changes to the model. I'm trying to help marry the difference between existing models with what we know is best practice today. We know that people who do mental health and who practice the 12 steps do better than either someone who just does one or the other, if they have those two issues together, those co-occurring issues. We recommend that people engage in mental health counseling throughout the process, especially when we start working around step 4. And we also believe that we need to respect mental health, the need for some people to need medication, to be on medication, and to continue that throughout their lives. We need to also respect the fact that supporters, often called sponsors in other groups, are respected as well. I have also integrated one of the leading intervention approaches theoretically through a process called motivational interviewing. So MI. MI is really the foundation of our approach to recovery. Therefore, instead of talking about character defects, we talk about target behaviors. We talk about dissonance and discord, how to reestablish balance in our life. Rather than needing to look over your shoulder to make sure the past isn't catching up with you, we recommend that you tap into whatever strengths and whatever resources you have. It's not about what brought you to the table as much as it is what you bring to the table. And as I mentioned, we have supporters versus sponsors. We believe that the big I, little you mentality doesn't fit well, especially and particularly for formers. We feel that there needs to be some equality in partnering and co-facilitating, co-working together. And so it's our practice to support people through their change rather than sponsor them through their change. And if a supporter is going to be working with someone who has less experience with them, we also recommend that if the person we're helping or assisting is working on step 1, that the supporter is also working on a step 1. Not do as I say, not as I do kind of mentality. That's also another significant issue or change in difference for us. I hope you find this video useful as a synopsis for who Formers Anonymous is. If you ever want the literature, all you need to do is look for us on Facebook, Formers Anonymous, and you'll see our literature embedded in the notes for free for anyone who wants to download it. Thank you very much. My name is Sammy. I'm the founder of Formers Anonymous, and I'm also a former. Thank you.